We met here doing The Great Gatsby last year.
And ironically, our characters were having an affair in the show, so we had to get very close very fast. I think one of the first blocking things I had to do in rehearsal was to try and seduce you. So it was it was a very quick sort of getting to know each other very fast.
Yeah, and we had to practice some dance sequences together, so that a lot of one-on-one time there. Got to know each other that way. Yeah, and for me, I guess it was late in the rehearsal process, getting to know her. Every day that I had a rehearsal, it was another day to get to know her as a person, and there was a lot of intrigue there.
So there wasn't one moment.
I can't place it on one moment. It was very gradual. We're getting married next June. Here, actually,
Yep.
on this stage.
Got engaged over the summer, and we actually just took our engagement pictures last week, and so we will be getting married here next June, and we're excited to start our lives together.
Yeah. You get to learn a lot about a person when you can see them as an actor too, because you see them who they are in person, and who they become as a character, and get to kind of peel back at all those layers.
It was easier to be myself after being something so completely ridiculous around him, and then all of a sudden it was like, oh, I seem a lot more normal now. Okay, great. The theater is a really unique world, and I think to someone who loves it as much as I do and as much as Matt does, it's important to have someone that understands it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, just getting to know you as a person versus you as a character, getting to see all sides of each other. That's a big part of it.
Well, we both showed up at auditions for Sherlock Holmes' Final Adventure back in 2013, and my first impression of Spencer was watching him audition and then talk when he was done with his audition, and I leaned over to my friend and I whispered, wow, he's really committed to the character. He's keeping his British accent off stage. So that's what I thought at first.
And lo and behold, he's kept it ever since.
Ever since.
Yeah, I auditioned for Sherlock. I'd been doing some community theatre out in the sticks, and I'd always seen these fantastic productions here and decided to come and give it a try, and got cast as Sherlock, which was quite daunting, and got to meet this lovely young lady.
Our relationship actually started a few months after the show closed, however. We really had enjoyed throughout the show getting to know each other and working on lines and running scenes, and just felt really comfortable spending time together. So we had continued our friendship, and Spencer actually became accent coach for another production I was directing.
Yeah, so I started going and teaching, and we just ended up hanging out more and more, and it got to the point where that's pretty much all we wanted to do, was hang out with each other. So we did. And then I asked her to marry me, and thankfully she said, well, she didn't say yes, actually. She said absolutely, which was far better.
I hope so.
I know so. For me, I think it was the fact that because our characters had such close interaction, it put us very close together a lot. And we had to trust each other in that circumstance. You know, if something goes wrong in a scene, you have to completely trust the person opposite you that they're going to bring the scene back. You know, it's not going to stall and look awful. So you get that element of trust with each other. And then when you're already playing a romantic interest, there's a closeness that develops. And, while for us at that time it was friendship, it certainly blossomed into far more. So.
I like to say, best show souvenir I've ever had right here.
Well, we used to, after some rehearsals, when we're all wound up, we'd go for walks as groups from the show, and sometimes Kristen and I would go just together. And I asked if we could go out to dinner one night, and we had dinner downtown, and then we walked around a lot of the places that had become significant to us from those walks. And we got to the spot where I first told her I had feelings for her, and I dropped down to one knee and asked her to marry me. So, silly really, but
Nah. Meaningful.
Meaningful. Well, we did Sherlock together, and then we went on our honeymoon to England, but just before that Kristen had been cast as Miss Minchin in Little Princess, and I was doing the accent coaching for that. And then I got asked to be captain crew in the same show. So right on the back of getting back from our honeymoon, we got to do another show on the same stage where we met, which just felt like it put a nice little bow around everything at the end and packaged it up for us.
Yeah, it kind of bookended our relationship with Civic, which is a lot of fun.
It is. And, this place is always going to hold a special meaning for us.
Well, we met in the fall of 1999,
No, wait, you know the date.
October 7th, 1999.
He still has the little audition notice card somewhere.
Yeah,
He hung on to it.
keep it in a drawer, stuffed away, just as a memento. So, the audition card. So,
For,
Scrooge the musical, the North American premiere,
yep.
and so we met during that show, and we were actually cast as a couple. That show was double cast, so we each had 2 parts in the show, and one of the parts that we had was a couple that went to the
Mary. I was Mary.
and I was
It was
Copper.
the minister cat
The
scene.
minister cat scene where I played the piano and everyone sang the minister's cat during
It's really cheesy.
the scene with Scrooge's nephew. Right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Scrooge's nephew. Hmm.
So
It was. I had done a couple shows at Civic already at that point, and I was working here in the offices, but it was Jeff's first show. You'd auditioned before, I think.
yes,
He'd auditioned before, but it was his actual first show on stage.
that's correct. Yeah.
So according to Jeff, he knew before we started dating. He said he fell in love with me before we even started dating. It was just a matter of convincing me. I did not know that quickly because I specifically remember being out doing, I don't know why we were in the lobby doing a dance rehearsal. We were in the lobby doing a dance rehearsal, and Jeff's much quieter than I am and takes a little longer to warm up. And he knew, you didn't know anybody in the cast, I don't think.
I didn't know.
No, he didn't know anyone, and I already had multiple friends. And I remember specifically being off to the side and looking over, and he's just standing back. And I said to my friend, "Who's the weirdo?"
Oh yeah.
He doesn't talk to anyone. He doesn't do anything. But we were we met at the first rehearsal, but we spent a lot of time separated, learning different singing parts and such. But then when we started, actually the first thing we practiced was Fezziwig's Ball. We moved the wall together.
That's correct. Yes.
There was some kind of change, I don't know, kind of like turned the wall or something, and we came out of it together at the same time.
Yes.
So that's when we started really talking and our rehearsals together, and then our couple scenes together. So for Jeff, it was a lot faster, but it was still pretty quick for me. But in rehearsals, he really made me laugh. But we consider, I don't remember what date the show opened, but it was November because it was the Beauty and the Beast time slot, the Christmas show. So our official dating date was Thanksgiving that year.
November 25th.
Go figure. November 25th of 1999. And we got married on November 25th of 2000.
Our 1-year dating anniversary.
Yep. So it's been almost 16 years of marriage. And so it's easy for him to remember 16 years of marriage
Yeah.
and 17 years
And it's exactly
together.
1 month before Christmas. So
Yep. Easy to remember. He
if I
can't.
forget, I'm really in
You
trouble.
have no excuse.
That's right.
No excuse at all. When you do a show with people, you become family.
Yeah,
not
that's
just a relationship, like
Right.
a love interest. You become friends. Even if you do one show and you don't see them for a year later you see them, and it's a family reunion. You become so close, you spend so much time with each other, you get emotional in ways you didn't expect. You're vulnerable because you're showing a side of you that people may not see, but at the same time, you really feel like you can be yourself. Theater's such an open, it's such an open group of people who are willing to accept anyone. So you learn a lot about people while you're there. I learned he wasn't a weirdo. I mean, actually, no, he's still a weirdo, but he's my weirdo. So
And I think too that along those lines, I think we both have those values of acceptance, and I think that's one thing that attracts us to the theater, and eventually attracted to each other too, as well, is that we have that overall acceptance as well. So
I accept a lot about you that I
she
shouldn't.
does,
Mm-hmm.
or she say puts up with a lot.
I put up with a lot.
We met in high school, actually a year before I got involved with Civic,
Before all the adventures started.
before the adventure started. But we met at City High School, and actually I was a 10th grader coming into City, which was
In
unusual.
1986?
Yeah.
Is that right?
And what's unusual about that is, kids didn't start in 10th grade in City High School. And so I kind of walked into a function, it was like open house or first day of school or whatever, and she was the first person to come up and smile at me and say hi to me, and because I just looked like, how did you describe it?
I don't remember.
The just like the loneliest kid on the planet or something like that.
Because most of us had been together since 7th grade, so new guy. As I think other people have mentioned, the feelings when you're working in theater are very intense. You're in the trenches with people, you're trusting them. If things go well, people support each other. If things don't go well, people still support each other. And it's a kind of intimate friendship that you make with people. And somewhere along the line that just turned into more.
We were friends, and then we dated for a while, and then I moved to Austin, Texas to figure some things out and go do my own thing. And
And
then
we spent 10 years apart where we didn't even talk, didn't know each other, nothing.
and yes, and that's a tale. But
So many stories.
But we got reconnected, and
Through the magic of Facebook.
through the magic of Facebook.
And we just started talking again and realizing that all the old feelings were there. And
we were finally in the right space to be what we are.
once you've been involved in Civic, I don't know how you could not be involved. I mean, it's
it's home. I just directed Holes at Civic, and it was like putting on an old comfortable set of clothes again. It was I just kind of at one point during rehearsals, I just stood around and stared and went, "This is where I've wanted to be."
It does feel like
all
coming
along,
home. And
so.
when I started lighting designing here, which was, I don't know, 15 years after, forever ago, it did feel like doing something coming home. And the people here are so supportive, the staff, the cast, the crews, and everybody wants the same thing. Everybody wants this magic to happen, and we all work together as a team. And when you go out in the real world and you find people who don't operate that way, it's kind of shocking. If you spend a lot of time in theater, you find
Exactly.
people that don't have that team dynamic, it's kind of hard to deal with. It is funny because when I'm light designing for Jason, I think I'm far more inclined to say things that I probably wouldn't say to other directors. Like, I have opinions and he finds out about them.
Yeah, can I have that? No. Okay.
Yes, sorry about that. So it is interesting. We love working together.
Oh, absolutely.
It's a great artistic endeavor, but I'm not really good at mincing words when it comes to.
And I don't want
My
her to. I
husband's.
don't want her to be.
So.
Absolutely not.
We
It
got
was a-
married on the stage here, and that was absolutely incredible. It's a blur for me. Other people tell me things about it. I have no. It's just all a blur.
One funny story was
Minister.
Minister was going over, okay, you gonna say your own vows? And I was like, oh yeah, I think. And she says, no. And I looked at her and she's like, I will be a mess. I won't even be able to function. And I went,
I couldn't
All
even
right.
stand there without crying. I mean, trying to read vows was not going to happen.
mm-hmm.
But it was incredible because entire theater community packing the auditorium. I don't really like being on stage anymore. It makes me uncomfortable, but there I was.
And I will never forget the image of her walking down the aisle with Paul on her arm, walking her up. It was amazing.
It was a
moment.
beautiful day, and we had some theater people sing, and then we went to one heck of a party and just had a great time.
The first time we saw each other, I think, was here on the stage. He was during setup of a show for Annie in the summer of '85. And then afterwards, I think we should have looked up, I think we worked a show here because you were stage managing. I think that was, no, Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat, and Michael Page was the associate director. And we did that show, remember?
Mhm.
And we did My Fair Lady with Jean Reed Bailey
Right.
as My Fair Lady. And we just did a whole bunch of shows here at Civic then the next year together. And then we got engaged and we were married like a year later. I remember Paul calling us into his office. I'm thinking of having some people out in the lobby. A lot of theaters are doing house managers. I think you guys would be good to do that together. And we were like, what is that? So no theater had one at the time. And so Andy stage managed most of the shows, and I would be out here in the lobby. And sometimes, was there ever a show you didn't stage manage for a while?
Well,
He would come out here,
I
he
didn't
might-
stage manage every show. I just usually was the bigger shows, just because that's where
Musicals.
they needed, especially musicals and the children's shows, where there's always lots of things happening, and kid casts. They're always
So
fun.
then we'd just drive down, he'd stage manage, I'd house manage. I think though, don't you think, it's all theaters have a sense of family, not just the Civic. And when people work creatively, together, I think that brings them closer together. And when you find people that you can be organized, have fun with, and produce something that's artworking, there's a bonding there. You know, so I think that's why you see a lot of theatrical romances.
And especially, most of them are volunteers, and so they really want to be here. They really are enjoying it. They keep coming back, and so that since everybody's wants to be here, not just doing a job, that makes it a much more of a family environment overall.
And you meet people with like interests then that are enjoying what they do rather than it's a job.